Coming to you straight from the Rio Grande and beyond. Broadcasting to the four corners of the globe. So grab your seat, your coffee, or your sundowner.
Okay, everybody, here we go.
On point, as always. This is Gloves Off. Gloves Off.
Wherever you call home, we are there. In favorite places, large spaces, for many homes we have coverage that fits the way you live. And with our home systems protection, you can cover major home appliances and more. We cover more type of homes than ever. Get the coverage you and your family deserves. For a free no obligation quote, visit us online or simply give us a call.
Back at you and Gloves Off. I'm Professor Buitron. I'm here with a great friend of mine, man I call my brother, Grandmaster Bram Frank, and we're touching base on a long blade, and especially in the Philippines, it's called the Bolo. And the reason for its training in today's world, and people say we don't need that here in the U.S., but we're going to take it from there. How we doing, my brother? You doing good?
I'm okay. Just so all of the listeners know, last Tuesday on the 1st was after Florida, a giant earthquake that has not stopped. They've had almost 4,000 aftershocks. The Philippines have been destroyed by earthquakes. They haven't stopped. And new earthquakes are happening in other parts of the Philippines. So I've been very stressed. The places I call home there, because, I live part-time in the Philippines, have been destroyed. They don't have water. They don't have food. It's very, very bad. So in that sense, I'm stressed. Other than that, to see you and be with you on the show, 100%. Because as Professor Paul just said, Professor Paul is my brother, my best friend, my guardian angel. So I'm honored to be on the show again.
Well, prayers to everybody in the Philippines, prayers to everybody that's being affected, and our prayers go out in this time of need, especially to the beautiful people that are over there. And, going on with what we were talking, because we're always communicating and talking about the issues that are at hand, especially in self-defense wide. And people say, why do you guys train with a long blade? In the Filipinos, you have, the Bolo, and there's various long blades. In a lot of the in Indonesia, you have the golok, and we'll show two differences, and we'll talk about that. But why do we train in that? What's the main reason in that? Number one, let's show them a Bolo. Show them a Bolo for people to see what it is.
This is actually from World War II. I have Remy's grandfather's and his uncle's Bolos. And it's about a 16-inch blade. And
Beautiful.
It's light, it's fast. And, every family gets its own version of Bolo. This is the Prasas Bolo. And Bolos are big knives. They're not short swords. And the Bolo has kept, the Philippines free. I found the family in Remy's honor, since I'm guarding legacy of Bolo, that I make new ones. This is a trainer, needs to be clean with it, so that we can keep the Prasas honor alive. And for all of you watching, Professor Paul knows that Bolos come in all different sizes. And so, just so I don't break my glass table in front of me, this is a Bowie size, because a Bolo is the iconic big knife for the Philippines, and a Bowie is the iconic big American big blade. And this one's just about that size, which is easier for me to use on camera, but they all work the same. Remy, in his very first book, everyone misses it in his foreword, it says, the sticks are beautiful and he invented modern arnis to show the different big pieces of other put it together, so you can understand if they may. But for real, the sticks are, as he says, for practice only. In real, for combative situations, as he says, it's the Bolo or itak or some kind of bladed implement where the lethality, his words, are more apparent and readily put because it's a blade of war. And I know we'll get into a little more. The reason bolos are used in the Philippines is from their freedom because they can make it out of anything. They're not fancy made. They're common big knives. And off the 7,600 islands, every family on those islands has their own version. And people go, "Oh, this is a bolo." I agree. I don't care what it looks like. A bolo is a bolo. It's not a fancy sword. It's a big knife. They use it. And bolos were meant for war. And the de-evolution of a bolo is actually machetes. You and I both know because we come from gardening areas. Everyone in Texas has a machete. Everyone in Florida has a machete. Where I lived, even in Vermont, we all had machetes because they become work tools. The military orders them. Law enforcement has them. Rescue squads have them. So part of the thing of what you asked about why do we train with big blade? It's because big blades are in Africa. They're inexpensive. Anybody can afford a machete, even though it's supposed to cut vines and trees and it'll cut a human being in little pieces. It's the number one terror tool in the world used by terrorists and cartels and stuff because it's a big knife and it's easy to wield. So when you and I teach big blade and how to defend against it, either empty-handed or with another blade, it's because we're not going to have a two-handed sword. We're not going to have a rapier. We're not going to have a quando. We're not going to have some kind of giant saber, or a buccaneer knife sword type thing. But we will run into a machete. And so teaching Filipino-style big blade or sabat big blade sword basic is because we're going to run into machetes everywhere. And a lot of my team members that I've trained, actually the department's okayed them, they're carrying bolos so that they understand the use of it. If they don't, I've taught them what to do with smaller blades to deal, or with their empty hands from Filipino stuff, try to enter and grab and trap to stop the machete from hurting them. But it's based on bolo because this is designed because there's no weight up here. This is going to be light and fast and cut. And machetes are so effective. People can carry a machete instead of a bolo since today we can, but you know me, I'm like you. I'd rather have a real bolo in my hand.
Absolutely. Here's another bolo. This is from another part of the Philippines, which is, this is probably
Yeah, exactly. In every family, they all have the same. They can all have some kind of bird's head ending, however it is. They all have the same kind of feel of, and I have to do this let me do it with the trainer. With sticks, people used to say, put the stick under your arm. This is a training blade, so it's not going to cut me. I make full functional drones. They say, put it on the length of the stick. In real, Brother Paul, who cares how long a stick is? Thunk your hands or whatever. But a bolo, that's what this whole thing was. If you could reach over and put your hands over the end of it, that meant by the time I grab the handle, I can turn this inside my arms and not cut myself. So everybody's bolo was handmade to them so that when we learn to turn and move, we can turn inside our own arms and not cut ourselves. Not that we don't thwack with a stick. They taught us that stick thing, not knowing it's come down from carrying a bolo. And of course, for you and me, because we like buoys, that size says because we can always turn a buoy inside our arm and not cut ourselves. And some of the old-fashioned sword moves and buoy moves, and I love the fact because buoys teaches you and me great things about back cuts and getting that tip rotating, but also the block with the back, not even with the flat. And I get the rotation because I do back, flat, and that rolls right to my cut, and then I have my entry. And I was going to say, so that I could be in somewhere with a blade and I hit it with the back. By the time I roll to the flat and I start to move, oh, that's my entry. And when I come back up, that's the cut. And that, coming up like what people call tonsile back, by the time I roll the flat and I continue my rotation, that's the cut. It's already there. And people think and I'm sure they've done it when they get to your class, because you and I talk about that they want to play d'Artagnan. They think they're dueling out here. And I go, anybody can cut with a machete or a bolo. The key is being able to stop it. And actually, when we stay on it, never lift our blade off. And that hacking at it, it's not a serious move. But if I run that edge, it's actually sharp. It's not hacking sharp. People going, oh, I'm going to hack at you. Well, if you got clothing on, blue jeans, got a jacket on, hacking just may not do it because that's doing this, trying to push it through. Blades aren't designed to push through. They're designed that everything is always in a tangent. So you're always catching that edge. It's never the same twice. So when you do it, whether you do a chef cut or a slice cut, that you're actually making that cut. So if I do a typical block and I pass it on that pass when I enter, that's my cut. You know, and you've heard me say, and I've watched you do it. We enter, we make that impact, we intercept, like in fencing, art of the fence, not Olympic. The art of the fence, using a blade for that. When we get it, we draw the blade through. We push the blade through. We come back around and we trap with the butt. You know, all this stuff we do with sticks, I trap with it. I grab, I hit, I butt strike, and I want to bring you into play. Bolos, well, for me, you know, I'm a bolo guy. And I'm honored. You know, the Filipino government, Arnis Philippines, the Presas family, in International Arnis, you know, I'm considered a great honor to me that I'm the guardian of the legacy of Bolo. President Gloria Arroyo, she said, Bram, you know, you're round eye outside, but you're Pinoy inside, and you've taken all our FMA to your heart. And she has my book, my Bolo certificate from them in her presidential library. And the late Benjamin Aquino, who came a couple terms after her, he actually wrote the forward to my book. And he's got both my Arnis books. And he wrote the forward for my book and my Bolo certificate and said, Bram, you know, Gloria was right. You're Pinoy inside, and you do what Remy asked. You keep the spirit of the Bolo alive. Because when Remy taught, as you know, I'm the only one he taught Bolo to, besides Roland Dantes and Cristino Vasquez, who grew up with him. And Cristino used to talk about being in the Sipa hut with Remy, watching their grandfather, uncle, and father teach Bolo to the Bolo battalion and the guerrillas. And Remy had come to me and said, I know you love knives and everything. You can do Bolo or stick. And I went, okay. And he goes, if you do Bolo, you can. So for 21 years with him, I did it on the side. I did Bolo. And, you know, before he died, he went, you supercharged my niece. I love your modular. Promise me when I die, you'll go out and I'll make sure you teach Bolo. So for 24 years since his death, because I've been out with you doing it, you've been kind of bring me out and encourage people that I teach Bolo wherever I go. I don't teach stick at all. I want people to understand the difference, that the idea that the movements are the same. It's Filipino motion. The actual attributes in use are totally different because I almost grabbed the life blade. I have someone, we were banging away, very famous martial artist. I'll leave his name out. And he goes, I can do that with you. And he would grab my blade and rip it out of my hand. And I would just stop. And Roland Dantes was there, and Bombet Dulai, and Bobby Tabata. Sonny Umpai was still alive. He was there. And they all started laughing. I said, I win. He goes, no, I took it from you. I went, you'd have fingies instead of fingers. As soon as you grab, he goes, no, I can do it. So every time he grabbed my blade, he tried to twist it out, do those twisting, you know, stick takeaways, disarms. And I go, I win. Well, in real, I wouldn't do that. And what I always say, how you train is how you'll fight. I said, you've trained yourself that upon impact, you grab. We're in a safe environment. No one said how fast you can't even not grab it in a safe environment. So I know that on the real, your first thing under panic, you would grab that blade. And he goes, you know what? I said, hey, I'm grabbing the blade. Okay, that's what I was showing here. That's how those guys can walk on swords, because pushing does nothing. So I did go, don't ever slide on it. So I said, when you grab it, you might grab it. And then if we slide, you pull me, I pull you, you've got a world of hurt coming to you. And then I'm going to give you an attitude adjustment. On that first cut, I win. you're not going to be thinking about cutting me anymore. Anyways, I didn't mean to get in that big babble about it there.
But you're absolutely correct, and we're gonna you touch base on the historical lessons of it, on the reality of it, and I'm me being a chef, me being but and me growing up with my uncles that taught what they used to call la larga, which was a bowie, and
Yeah,
how you
exactly.
and we have it, we still teach it, and it's something that people say it's not used. Well, in Texas, you can carry a bowie. In Texas, I can go around with this galok right here because there's a galok is from
Yeah,
Indonesia. You can carry it. Now, people say most, as we all know, in the Philippines as well, because they were colonized by Spain. The the martial art that I would say covered the world by the 17th century was the Spanish fencing.
absolutely. I agree, 100%.
It conquered the Americas. It conquered the Philippines. It conquered a lot. It was an empire that never slept at one
Yeah,
particular time. And people say, well, it's Filipino. No, but it was a remnant of Spanish fencing when they mixed with the people of those parts of the world. People say we don't have remnants of Spanish fencing in Mexico or in Latin America. Yes, we do. There's a lot of
absolutely. Yeah,
there's a lot of them still in small villages and areas that continue doing these folkloric
yeah,
games or folkloric cuts and folkloric dances with blades. It's still alive and kicking.
yeah.
And the reason I'm bringing this up is right now we've had a fluctuate of a lot of illegals, and I hate to uh, you bring them because they're not criminals in any way, but there's a lot of bad elements that came along with that. Everybody says, "Oh, you're a martial artist."
And those people, because of the culture, have experience in the blades. And that's
Absolutely,
even, I won't get into how I feel about Islamist terrorists, but they also come from a blade culture.
absolutely.
Yeah. And so it
So,
behooves us, especially for us as instructors, to enlighten our people about this is not going to be Dungeons and Dragons. It's not going to be some game you play in the dojo floor. It's going to, those, just like they did in Manchester. That guy just drove through the shul, hopped out of his car, and started stabbing people. They're showing them stabbing people, the Antifa stabbing people on the street. And the average person, even trained officers, are in shock because it's not part of their training program. They don't know what it is. And if you, that's, I was talking to someone in Texas the other day, and I said, because of the grace of Professor Paul Buitron, I'm actually an instructor for the Texas militia. I take it very seriously, and he brings me out there to introduce them to a different kind of blade than he does, and introduce my modular, so these people know what to expect. And it's my honor to go out with you, where that to me, that's the home of the Bowie. That's the home of the blade.
and a lot of people do not understand that that's what we're going to meet. That's what you're going to encounter in the street. You're going to encounter those people that are not afraid of wielding a blade. You see, sometimes people will take a blade. I'll pull this one out, and they'll practice with it because they knew a form and they were taught something, and they're here doing what have you, and but they have not learned how to wield it,
Yes,
know how to control it. And why do I mean by that? They're hypnotized for what the weapon it is, and they
yes,
play with they play. I use the term play. They'll play
yes.
with it in training, and here I am, and I'm playing with it. But how many of them are actually day in and day out wielding it, using it, carving out whether it's animals in butchery or using it in the kitchen or in gardening
Or
with a
even the people in the fields, farm
yep.
workers, who they are using a blade every day. They're so used to what the I just have to like left turn in Albuquerque. I taught Monty Dennis, one of my guys who had been a police officer, ended up going to becoming a butcher for Publix, worked in the meat department, and he fell in love with what we do. So he had a group of his guys come take a seminar with me. About 20 minutes in, I swear to God, they all huddle up and come back and go, Grandmaster Frank? I went, yes. And they go, do you want us to do to people what we do to meat all day? I went, exactly. He goes, and look around, go, but they'd fall apart. I go, right. I'm not asking to be D'Artagnan. I don't want you to be El Cid out there. I'm not asking to be King Arthur. I'm asking you to specifically cut doing like me, biomechanical shutdown. He goes, sir, the parts will fall off. I go, perfect. The guy can't hurt you anymore. You know, the Black Knight, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I turn you into a stump.
Yeah, but people do not understand that. And when you mix a couple of things together, and you mix drugs with blades, sometimes a blade, depending on the speed of the blade, and they slash, because there's a difference between a thrust and a slash and a cut.
Yeah,
they slash you. They can cut. They're cutting the epidermis part, but the person is not down. You really have to learn how to cut to be able to cut, to impair that person from continuing.
You've probably seen Professor Paul, blue jeans. People don't understand what kind of iron, and that they're almost like a form of armor. And I've got on my tactical, my thick, heavy tactical pants. I'm not wearing them on duty or anything, so I wear them around the house. A little hot here doing it, but I wrap up swim noodles in it now rather than meat, and I show people, and I hit it, and I barely, because it's heavy combat fabric and heavy, not dress jeans, but heavy work jeans. And it barely cuts through the fabric, because it's been the reason blue jeans were designed so we could wear them for work. Levi Strauss made them to protect us, not to look good. And the same thing, a lot of combat gear, the fabric is so thick and so the way it's woven, it's hard to cut the fabric, which means if you're just coming around at best, it's like the fencers when they'd want to have that cut, or the Germans who wanted to just move out of the way and have that scar as they delivered the kill blow. Why? Because if you cut someone, as you said, just the skin levels, that doesn't stop someone. If we're biomechanical pulley system, you go, why do you intercept? I said, I want to cut through your jacket, your sweater, your sweatshirt, your shirt, and then through your flesh, because I want to take care of your flexors. No flexors, your hand doesn't move. People go to the outside. Now you put your meat. You dress down games. You get this. My friend John Daly, who went to Cordon Bleu, he gets it. You watch all these guys cutting in the outside of the arm on the extensors. They go cut and pull, and I go, you didn't stop the hand from, I cut you. I get that, but I may not even know I'm cut. But all of us who work in a kitchen, we know how to take a knife and do rounding cuts. We go around the bone. Tell people on the outside, if you learn to slice, the tip of the knife, when I'm starting the outside, by the time I get through, it's coming out the other side. So that I may start on the extensors, but by the time the blade comes through, part of it pops right through the flexors, and I'm still doing this. I'm just not doing it on top. I catch at the bone, I go around the bone, it comes out through, and learn as you said, learn to cut. I found people who don't know how to use a chef knife, a simple chef knife properly on a cutting board. I go, that teaches you great cutting skill. And, I said, don't roast your chicken whole. Split it up. Learn to debone it. Why? The feel of going around those bones will teach you a great skill for out there. And I tell people.
And you're correct. It might sound graphic to a lot of individuals, but when you are in a self-defense situation and you have people that are coming at you, or you have somebody that's in you, maybe he's on some drugs, maybe he's been taking something, and maybe now he's impaired with a drug, but he's not impaired, how can I say, physically. He's going to continue coming at you. And people do not understand that. In the street, you call them Jack in the Box. You hit them a couple of times and they keep popping up, and you're like, man.
Exactly.
So
we were chasing this one perp, and he was actually gotten cut with their big fight, gang war, and his neck had been cut, and we didn't realize that he's pushing with his left hand, rather, because he's got a blade in his hand. He's holding his head on. He had a big slice, and if they told you, he should bleed out, he should have.
But he wasn't. He was so high on drugs. He's holding his head on as he's going down, still hacking at people. And, he was finally bleeding out, exsanguination to start to tire, but he was still a threat. And I tell people, one little aside, they called me on the ambulance, said a piece of rebar had fallen through this guy's head. I said, what are you calling me for? Call the morgue. I said, no, you got to come here. I said, no, call the morgue. I swear to God, a waste of my time. So I get to this giant factory, old-fashioned factory, and a piece of rebar had broken loose. This guy is pinned to his workstation. He's in shock. He has no idea. And he's still talking. He goes, I don't know what happened. I can't move. And I'm looking at him. We had to stabilize him, cut the rebar. He talked to me all the way in the ambulance, in the rig, all the way to the emergency. They took it out in a couple of weeks. He was back at work because it didn't have anything that he needed. But it taught me my first idea, blade through the head, he must be dead. We've seen many gunshots, they're not dead. Wounds, they're not dead. You cannot assume just because you poked them a few times, you've done some of this stuff. Or like Leo Harone, when he talked about, he cut the guy, turned to cut the second guy, and the Japanese soldiers bandoliers, Leo didn't cut anything. And he just killed the second guy. He just luckily turned around in time to stop him. And he used to tell us and Guru Dan going, do not believe your first cut. Watch what you're doing. Watch that you shut them down. Don't just be all over. Goes, I'm just by grace of God, I didn't die. And I know, and that's what I was going to say. When I was in Israel and I bumped into East Jerusalem, when I had my very first knife, I did what I tell all of people not to do. I know you tell your students, don't have a plan in your head because the bad guy doesn't know the plan. But I had a plan. I was young, testosterone. The guy attacks me. I go to stop him, stop his knife. I pull my knife up, and I knew it was going to come up. And I kidnap it open. I do this fancy stuff and make them stop. It came up like this. Maria told me, talk about you have to learn to intercept. I know what to do. Well, it opened what I now affectionately, call Waka Waka Pac-Man. And I came, his left hand was there, and I caught him. And there's what you and I talked about. There's a slice cut, a scissors cut. And when I intercepted him and sliced it, his ring finger and pinky finger came off. And I went, oh, and guess what? I got an attitude adjustment. And that, when it's inside like that, that's edge in, tip down, that a lot of people like talk about going to trap them. But that hole, that's a slice cut.
Absolutely.
And just have to tip down and be what and go, you understand, you got to take it out of context and rotate it. Where's your blade? So if you don't know how to use the edge properly, because it's the edge that cuts, and geometry of the blade is important. That's why we design stuff. The coolest thing is, most Filipino bolos, just from time in and practice, those edges are designed to maintain that tangential point and keep cutting as they go. Doesn't matter how slow. It's not how fast we do it, not how hard we do it, to make that edge work. And that comes from experience of staying in the confines of our body and bringing the edge into play. And most people don't. I'm not scared of a lot of FMA guys or martial arts guys. I am what you said. I'm scared of gardeners, butchers, hunters. John goes, you scared of me? I said, John, you spent all those years in cordon bleu learning how to disassemble stuff in the kitchen. Yeah. And he also lived on an Indian reservation for lots of years, and he hunts, dresses down his own meat like you and stuff. And I'm like, those are the scary people. And what you had said also about people just doing, when blades became common era, anybody could use them. In the old days, the knights of armor, of whatever you want to call them, that's why they laughed at the common person, because they dedicated their lives to how does this tool work. They didn't just give it to them. They would laugh because people go, I made it work. I know you made it work. That's, it's like in the movie Zorro when he goes, do you know what to do? He goes, yeah, I put the pointy end in, and you watch Zorro go, yeah, right. We have to learn. And Remy used to say, you must remember the cut. And I spent so much time, people go, Why didn't he teach me? Well, you guys didn't care. He called me the man with the knife, and I became the guardian of the legacy of Bolo because I care. I like cutting. I love cooking. I'm a chef. I love cooking, especially Asian cooking, because you have to get small parts and cut. And I've had a knife since I was 4 years old. Anyways, bolos give us the ability to play our arts, knowing that we're designing to save officers, civilians, military people from machetes of all sizes. During World War II, when the Filipinos came here, when they started the 1st and 2nd Bolo Battalion and trained them out in California, they gave them machetes. And so they actually hacked at each other and learned what was good and bad about making sure they didn't hit edge to edge and destroy it. They would destroy machetes. And at first, the Filipinos were like, we destroyed these blades. And the U.S. Army was, we don't care. Just freaking machetes. We'll give you more. Because they're all training. When they graduated, they gave them their own bolos, which I wish I could still find. They were chisel ground Springfield. They were Springfield bolos. People, look what I found. I said, they were a limited run only for the 1st and 2nd Bolo Battalion. They were more ceremonial than user. But the people who practiced and went to fight in World War II, they went home and got their family bolos, and they knew not to do edge to edge. That's where that you and me, that's what I said about Bowie. Bowie stresses with you because of that brass strap. Let him hit the back so you don't hurt your blade. I can turn. Well, by the time I rotate and flat, I'm right over. Wham! And if I come in here and he goes to check it, there's that back cut to make it work. So, training is everything. And to me, and to the people, the masters of mine and Kuyas, my older brothers who are dead in the Philippines, who've graced me with their art, their skills, and encouraged me. This is, like it says for Rizal and a lot, the soul of the Philippines is the bolo. The beauty of the Philippines is the stick. I'm amazed by what a stick will do. But this was what kept the Filipinos free. They couldn't afford swords. A lot of countries, all the people, the citizens who've risen up to free their country. It's like here. Everyone laughs. Americans, I'm sure more people. We have buoys everywhere. We may have machetes, but to us, a big buoy. That's our blade. That's the equivalent of a bolo, and I teach it that way.
Lord, I keep telling this to everybody, and I keep saying this. In the New Testament, Jesus told the apostles, "If you do not have a sword, you go sell your cloak and go buy one." And that is very, very interesting because nobody takes that at heart. And
No.
and today you've seen it. I carry a Bowie. I mean, especially if I'm dressed, I'm with my mistress on the side, and no pun intended, but that's her name, and
Yeah,
she's there.
absolutely. That's why it was the Iron Mistress.
And she's underneath my shirt, and I have no quarrel in it. I learned with a boy, la larga, as my uncles used to call it. I keep it right. There's certain positionings of it that we still teach in Dance Rue Savant, and you've seen it. And it's
Yeah. I'm just fading for a second. Because I just had it redone with tops. My little carry, my abanico, that's what I designed for Recon and Delta. That's a 7-inch buoy with a modified Bram grind, so that I can get that back cut. And when I don't have it, I've made a folder version. I make a 4-inch version for small carry and play because I'm like you. I don't ever not have a knife. Okay. I've had some places like in Temple when they told me not to, which is why I made the crimp. But the motions are the same. But I'm like you. I understand. This is mankind's first and best friend. We would not have survived all those years without it. We didn't make it. We didn't invent sticks. We didn't invent clubs, but we certainly invented this. We invented an edge that was designed to cut flesh. It wasn't designed to cut cloth. It wasn't designed to cut rope or anything else. We were primitive humanoids, and we made something that it's 3.9 million years old, that concept. an edge that cuts flesh. And I don't care what you make it out of. This is our best friend. And it's up to people like you and me to keep teaching that. And, a bolo is actually something that's big enough we could actually use in war.
Here's something for those that are interested, because I like those bolos. It's something that you can carry. You can go out there and buy something that you're able to carry. Buy something that it's a tool that's going to be with you on your side. Buy something of quality that you can use. In the case of an emergency, in the case of when the shit hits the fan, I'll put it that way. Every hardware store, every Walmart, every grocery store, if you go to a certain aisle, there's going to be a couple of machetes lying around.
Home Depot's filled with them.
You know what I'm saying? So it's a weapon that you can easily find if you need to.
And a big chef knife is, a lot of the original Sheffield chef knives became repackaged as buoys in the early days. And, like what I did with the Rondon that I was doing that I just going to do for the Marine Corps, just did for Scallywag. That's an 8.5-inch buoy. You go out and I go, because I love buoys. Why do you keep making big blades? Because I'm like you. I love big blades. I love the feel of them. I love having them because I can carry this, and there's just something about it, Brother Paul. I look at people go, what? And go, because I can picture that back to the flat. You start to move at me. Hey, I'm right there to make sure that edge comes into play. People go, your swedge isn't sharp. You don't need that swedge sharp to get that first entry. When it hit, and then by the time we slide in, presto. Anyways, I just love it. And for a historical sense for you and me, because we both love FMA so much in all that region, it allows me to preserve the legacy, Remy's legacy, his family legacy. It allows me to still do my FMA and go, this blade is part of it, as well as the fact that you and I are tied to everything from Mexico to Tex-Mex to America by buoy. Blades give us a context. And of all the people I've met, where you and I met the fastest, soul to soul, was the fact we both use blades and understand and like blades. And you and I use them very differently at times. But the actual use of the edge, we do the exact same way. I love when you show me Savant entries with it's so amazing to watch you do that.
And it's the blades. It's I always go back to that old song that Bobby Darin made famous. Mac the Knife. Hey, that's just what it. In the streets, the knife is going to prevail. People say, yeah, but don't bring a knife to a gunfight. A lot of the old
don't bring a gun to a knife fight.
So yeah, you have to understand that blades are alive and kicking. And if you're in the martial arts, if you're training, you have to realize that is a part of reality that is very much alive. And people need to understand, and especially here in Texas, and I tell these to the folks here in Texas, pay attention to how many men in your area carry a knife in their pocket. Just pay attention. How many of them are carrying a clip point, or they're having a blade on their belt, and you'll be surprised because Texas is a bladed.
In Florida, we are too. We have almost, that's why Randall is down here, because they can make and sell them here, and even have the back swedge sharp. Because in some states, you can't do that. For a lot of listeners, if you love blades, I know it's a really left turn to Albuquerque, kniferights.org. That's the NRA of the knife world. It's like $25 a year. And we fight it. We've made it like the NRA that possessing and using knives is a Second Amendment right, because it says the right to bear arms, not firearms. And we fight all the time to change really stupid knife laws. And it's you can get the app on your phone, and it updates every day for every state and everything. What are all the knife laws? Because that's that's the group who fights for us legally while we go out there and do whatever. But knives, mankind's best friend. And my first three rules always hold in effect. Rule number one is steel cuts flesh, always. Rule number two, you can't change rule number one. And rule number three, unless you got on a blue suit with a big red S on it, rules one and two always. People go, sir, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
People do not understand the difference. And anywhere around, and if you travel outside the United States and you go to most of other countries, whether it's in any of from Asia, Africa, even Europe, South America, you will always run into places that build knives, and they're part of the subculture of that area. Whether it's a city, they make a certain particular blade that's from that city, and that is throughout not the United States, throughout the world. The
Yeah.
U.S. you still find that always, and you have all your different blades that exist, but in some of these regions, they have stylized knife makers, especially in Spain. Every
Yeah.
town has its own type of blade, and
Absolutely.
you have the same thing. And it's so blades are very much a part of mankind, and it's something that you have to understand how to deal with. And the only way you can defend yourself is to learn how to use it. And
Absolutely.
find yourself a competent instructor if you're going to do so, and train. And if you're in an area where you're trying to find some FMA, give us a call, either to me or to Grandmaster Frank, and we'll send you. More likely we'll find somebody that's around your area.
Yeah,
That's
and
that.
even because of technology in today's world, you'll need a couple times to meet us in person. With video, once you've been with us, then we can show you because you'll understand it what to do. But in today's world, also practice on your cutting board. I tell people, take like a zucchini, take your chef knife, and be slow. Slow is fast, smooth is fast. Learn to make that edge work. Don't just hack at it. And understand, and that's why I use knife rights. I tell people, find out what you're legally allowed to carry, find out what you're legally allowed to use as a blade. So in case an SDR, self-defense response situation comes up, when you pull it out, you have a totally legal tool that's authorized to be used, and they're not worried about you use an illegal tool. You defended yourself with a legal authorized tool. It just happened to be a self-defense situation. And if we trained you properly, even your response will be mitigated. It's legal. You have to plan ahead. But the bad guys have no rules. And as you said, most of them come from blade cultures. They use blades all the time. And back to what we said about the Philippines, I've had people go, that's like my bolo looks like this. And I go, you don't get it. There are thousands and thousands. It's like FMA styles. They're like the stars. There's so many of them. None are better than others. They're all just a little different. And in Philippines, everybody's got their own version of what they call a bolo or an itak or whatever. It doesn't matter. Gununting bolo. They go, it's gununting. I said, you forgot the last part. It says gununting bolo because they're big knives. Manny Prado, when Top makes them, because a lot of times he does the gununting version with the drop tip in the inside, and his team uses them. But he also has a Duhan Palai, and he goes, Bram, this is the closest I make to a Presas bolo. And people are what? I said, look, whatever your bolo looks like, this is a Presas bolo. It's what I teach. That's what I happen to like. It's the style I was brought up in. But a lot of us, our actual application, don't forget all the trapping and things you can do. Because the machete people they know how to use the blade. You said they don't know how to redirect. They don't know how to stop the attack. I did it with Chad Bailey, Grandmaster Chad Bailey. I had him swing at me. We each had really nice machetes, and he swung him. I just kept blocking with the back and the flat, and it made some scoring, but it didn't hurt my edge. His edge was turning. It was full power blows, and I was just stopping. I said, the bad guy usually attacks you. You don't have a chance to. You're not usually attacking them. So I got this out. I did some spacing. I stepped and bang. And then we said, let's just do some basic Sinawali edge to edge. In minutes, we had ruined both machete edges because that's the hardest part is edge. and we took pieces out of it. I said, so what they taught you works with a stick, doesn't work with a blade. You ruin the edge. And people used to laugh at the backstrap, like I said, of buoys with the copper or the brass. I go, what's that? I go, it's to catch the blade, to make sure you don't want to ruin that edge. And I want to use the edge on you, not on the tool. I want to use the flat in the back on the guy's tool, so you ruin your tool, and then mine is still sharp for entry and what I'm going to do with it. And I tell people, when I did stick, I didn't understand abanico or abanico largo I got, but not with the stick, because to you and me, that becomes a back cut. And, when I'm doing an abanico upside, if I just turn that edge, I bring that swedge into play and come up. But as soon as you have a blade in your hand, all that stuff makes sense. I went, God, I love abanico because I can just cover my corners. You run your edge into the flat of my blade, and at worst case, you slide down it. If we pass it, I can come right in and cut.
Absolutely.
So and all of you guys watching this, you see Professor Paul smiling? Professor Paul and Bram get carried away because we love blades. I design and make knives. I love knives. I carry the closest thing I can every day. I design and make lots, but the blade itself, you can see it in my look, and it brings me joy. You can see Professor Paul's face when he picks it up. It actually brings us joy to have steel in our hands. And the fact that we can teach people how to save their lives, especially in today's world, also helps.
Absolutely. And hopefully if you get a piece of what we talked about today, and it sparks that fire in you to learn to defend yourself, that's what this is all about. To learn a little bit of the bolos from the Philippines and go out there and do a little bit of research, that's what this is all about. To try to look for to teach you how to defend yourself. Like I said, this is what it's about. Now, we'll do this. We're running out of time. If you want to buy some of Bram's blades, I'll put the description in the channel in the description box, and you all can pick it up from there. They're great blades for you to train with and to carry. Not only to train with, but to carry. But we'll leave you with this. My brother, we'll be touching base in a bit, but everybody else, you all stay safe, be safe, and God bless you all. Until next time, much peace.
Got it. Be safe. God bless you all.
Have you ever wondered about what happens in a martial arts studio? Well, you start right away by setting goals, building determination, gaining focus, building skills, all while becoming more fit, gaining confidence, and learning self-defense. Buitron Academy is a school where attitude meets aptitude. So give us a call at 956-401-4868.